Chapter 1 of the Bothie of Toper-na-Fuosich. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Bothie of Toper-na-Fuosich by Arthur Clough. Note: the reader is warned to expect every kind of irregularity in these modern hexameters. Spondaic lines, so called, are almost the rule, and the word will often require to be transposed by the voice from the end of one line to the beginning of the next. My long vacation pupils will, I hope, allow me to inscribe this trifle to them, and will not, I trust, be displeased if, in a fiction, purely fiction, they are here and there reminded of the times we enjoyed together. Chapter 1. It was afternoon, and the sports were all but over. Long had the stone been put, tree cast, and thrown the hammer. Up the perpendicular hill, Sir Hector so called it, 8 stout shepherds and gillies had run too wondrous quickly. Run too, the course on the level had been. The leaping was over. Last in the show of dress, a novelty recently added. Noble ladies their prizes adjudged for costume that was perfect, turning the clansmen about, who stood with upraised elbows, bowing their eyeglass brows and fingering kilt and sporran. It was 4 of the clock, and the sports were all but over. Therefore, the Oxford party went off to adorn for the dinner. Be it recorded in song who was first, who last in dressing. Hope was the first, black-tied, white-waistcoated, simple. For the postman made out he was a son to the Earl of Alay, as indeed he was to the younger brother, the Colonel. Treated him therefore with special respect, doffed bonnet, and ever called him his honour. His honour he therefore was at the cottage. Always his honour, at least. Sometimes the Viscount of Alay. Hope was first, his honour, and next to his honour, the tutor. Still more plain the tutor, the grave man nicknamed Adam. White-tied, clerical, silent, with antique, square-cut waistcoat. Formal, unchanged of black cloth, but with sense and feeling beneath it. Skillful in ethics and logic, in Pindar and poets unrivalled. Shady in Latin, said Lindsay, but topping in plays and Aldrich. Somewhat more splendid in dress, in a waistcoat work of a lady. Lindsay succeeded. The lively, the cheery, cigar-loving Lindsay. Lindsay the ready of speech, the piper, the dialectician. This is his title from Adam, because of the words he invented, who in 3 weeks had created a dialect new for the party. Master in all that was new, whatever was recherché and racy. Master of newest inventions, and ready deviser of newer. This was his title from Adam, but mostly they called him the piper. Lindsay succeeded, the lively, the cheery, cigar-loving Lindsay. Hewson and Hobbs were down at the Mattoon, bathing, of course, too. Arthur Audley, the bather, par excellence, glory of the headers. Arthur they called him, for love and for euphony, so they were bathing. There where in the morning was custom, where over a ledge of granite, into a granite basin descended the amber torrent. There they were bathing and dressing. It was but a step from the cottage. Only the road and larches, the ruinous millstead between. Hewson and Hobbs followed quick upon Adam. On them followed Arthur. Airily descended the last, splendescid as god of Olympus. Blue, half-doubtably blue, was the coat that had white silk facings. Waistcoat blue, coral-buttoned, the white tie finely adjusted. Coral, moreover, the studs on a shirt as of crochet of women. When for 10 minutes already, the 4-wheel had stood at the gateway. He, like a god, came leaving his ample Olympian chamber. In the four-wheel they drove to the place of the clansmen's meeting. So in the four-wheel they came, and Donald the innkeeper showed them up to the barn where the dinner should be. 4 tables were in it, 2 at the top and the bottom, a little upraised from the level. These for the chairman and croupier, and gentry fit to be with them, 2 lengthways, in the midst for keeper and gillie and peasant. Here were clansmen, many in kilt and bonnet assembled, keepers a dozen at least, the Marquis's targeted gillies, pipers 5 or 6, among them the young one, the drunkard, many with silver brooches, and some of those brilliant crystals, found amid granite dust on the frosty scalp of the Cairn Gorm, but with snuff boxes all, and all their boxes using. Here too were Catholic priest and established ministers standing, one to say grace before, the other after the dinner. The Catholic priest, for many still clung to the ancient worship, and Sir Hector's father himself had built them a chapel. So stood the priest and minister, near to each other but silent, one to say grace before, the other after the dinner. Hither anon too came the shrewd, ever-ciphering factor, hither anon the attaché, the guardsman mute and stately, hither from lodge and bothy, and all the adjoining shootings, members of Parliament many, forgetful of votes and blue books, here, amid heathery hills, upon beast and bird of the forest, venting the murderous spleen of the endless railway committee, hither the Marquis of Ayr, and Dalgarnish Earl and Copier, and at their side, amid murmurs of welcome, long looked for, himself too, eager, the grey but boy-hearted Sir Hector, the chief and the chairman. Then the dinner was served, and the minister asked for a blessing, and to the viands before them with knife and with fork they beset them. Venison, the red and the roe, with mutton and grouse succeeding. Such was the feast, with whiskey of course, and at the top and bottom small decanters of sherry, not over choice, for the gentry. So to the viands before them with laughter and chat they beset them. And when on the flesh and on fowl they had appetite duly been sated, up rose the Catholic priest, and returned God thanks for the dinner. Then on all the tables were set black bottles of well-mixed toddy, and with the bottles and glasses before them, they sat digesting, talking, enjoying, but chiefly awaiting the toasts and speeches. Spare me, O mighty remembrance, for words to the task were unequal. Spare me, O mistress of song, nor bid me recount minutely all that was said and done, or the well-mixed tempting toddy. Bid me not to show in detail, grimace and gesture painting, how healths proposed and drunk with all the honours, glassets and bonnets waving, and 3 times 3 thrice over, queen and prince, and army, and landlords all, and keepers. Bid me not grammar define, repeat, from grammar defiers. Long constructions strange, and plusquam thaiceden. Tell, how a sudden torrent of time of speech in the mountain hurries 6 ways at once, and takes at last to the roughest, or the practised rider at Astley's or Franconi's, skilfully, boldly bestrides many steeds at once in the gallop, crossing from this to that, with one leg here, one leg yonder, so less skilful, but equally bold, and wild as the torrent, hurried the lively goodwill, and garrulous tale of Sir Hector. Left to oblivion be it, the memory, faithful as ever, how the noble courtier would wind up with his word with a whistle, how the Marquis of Ayr, with quaint gesticulation, floundering through the game and messed
room recollections, gossip of neighboring forest, praise of targeted gillies, anticipation of royal visit, skits at pedestrians, swore he would never abandon his country nor give up deer stalking. How two, more brief and plainer in spite of Gaelic accent, Highland peasants gave courteous answer to flattering nobles. 2 orations alone the memorial song will render. For at the banquet's close spake thus the lively Sir Hector, somewhat husky, with praises exuberant, often repeated, pleasant to him, and to them, of the gallant Highland soldiers, whom he erst led in the fight, something husky, but cheery, though weary.
Up to them rose and spoke the grey but gladsome chieftain.
Fill up your glasses once more, my friends, with all the honours. There is a toast which I forget, which our gallant Highland homes have, always welcome stranger. I may say delighted to see, fine young men at my table. My friends, are you ready? The strangers. Gentlemen, I drink your healths, and I wish you, with all the honours. So he said, and the cheers ensued, and all the honours. All our collegians were bowed to, the attaché detecting his honour. The guardsmen moved to Arthur, the Marquis saddling to Airlie, while the little drunken piper came across to shake hands with Lindsay. But, while the healths were being drunk, was much tribulation and trouble. Nodding and beckoning across, observed of attaché and the guardsmen, Adam wouldn't speak. Indeed, it was known he couldn't. Hewson could, and would if they wished. Philip Hewson, the poet. Hewson, the radical hating lords and scorning ladies. Silent mostly, but often reviling in fire and fury. Feudal tenures, mercantile lords, competition and bishops, liveries, armorial barons, amongst other things the game laws. He could speak, and was asked to by Adam. But Lindsay aloud cried, whiskey hot in his brain, confound it, no, not Hewson. Ain't he cocksure to bring in his eternal political humbug? However, so it must be, and after due pause of silence, waving his hand to Lizzie, and smiling queerly to Adam, up to them spoke and rose the poet and radical Hewson. I am, I think, perhaps the most perfect stranger present. I have not 2 or 3 of my friends, in my veins some tincture, some few ounces of Scottish blood, know nothing like it. I am therefore perhaps the fittest to answer and thank you. So I thank you, sir, for myself and for my companions. Heartily thank you all for this unexpected greeting. All the more welcome as showing you do not account us intruders. Are you not unwilling to see the north and south foregather? And surely seldom have Scotch and English more joyously mingled. Scarcely with warmer hearts, clear sense of mutual manhood, even in tourney and foray and fray and regular battle, where the life and the strength come out in the tug and tussle. Scarcely, where man confronted man, and soul clasped soul, close as the bodies and intertwining limbs of athletic wrestlers, when for the final bout our day's 2 champions mated, in the grand old times of bows and bills and claymores, at the old Flodden Field, Bannockburn, Colden. And he paused for a moment, for breath and because of cheering. We are better friends, I fancy, for that old fighting. Better friends, inasmuch as we know each other better. We can now shake hands without subterfuge or shuffling. On this passage followed a great tornado of cheering. Tables were rapped, feet stamped, a glass or 2 got broken. He ere the cheers had died wholly away, and while they were stamping, added with a smile and an altered voice his sarcastic conclusion. Yet I myself have little claim to this honor of having my health drunk. For I am not a gamekeeper, I think, nor a game preserver. So he said, and sat down, but his satire was not taken. Only the men, who were all on their legs as concerned in the thanking, were a trifle confused, but mostly stared without laughing. Lindsay alone, close facing the chair, shook his fist at the speaker. Only a Liberal member, away at the end of the table, started remembering sadly the chance of a coming election. Only the attaché sneered to the guardsman, who twirled his mustachio. Only the Marquise faced round, but not quite clear of the meaning, joined with the joyous Sir Hector, who lustily beat on the table. And soon after the chairman arose, and the feast was over. Now should the barn be cleared, and forthwith adorning for the dancing? And our friends, retiring to wait for this consummation, were, as they stood in the doorway uncertain, debating together, by the good chieftain so joyous invited hard by to the castle. But as the doorway they quitted, a thin man, clad as the Saxon, trouser and cap and jacket of homespun blue, hand-woven, singled out and said with determined accent to Hewson, resting his hand on his shoulder, while each with eyes dilating, firmly scanned each. "Young man, if ye pass through Braes o' Lochber, see by the loch side ye come to the Bothie of Toper-na-Fuosich."
End of chapter 1. Of the Bothie of Toper-na-Fuosich by Arthur Clough. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Morn, in yellow and white, came broadening out from the mountains. Long ere music and reel were hushed in the barn of the dancers. Duly, in Matutine bathed, before 8, some 2 of the party. There in the morning was custom, where over a ledge of granite, into a granite basin descended the amber torrent. Duly, their 2 plunges each took Philip and Arthur. Duly in Matutine bathed, and read, and wished for breakfast. Breakfast, commencing at 9, lingered lazily on to the noonday. Tea and coffee was there, a jug of water for Hewson, tea and coffee, and 4 cold grouse upon the sideboard. Cranberry jam was reserved for tea, and for festive occasions. Gaily they talked as they sat, some late and lazy at breakfast, some professing a book, some smoking outside at the window. 'Neath an aura soft pouring, a still sheeny tide to the zenith, Hewson and Arthur, with Adam, had walked and got home by 11. Hope and the others had stayed till the round sun lighted them bedward. They of the lovely Aurora, but these of the lovelier women, spoke of noble ladies and rustic girls, their partners. Turned to them Hewson, the chartist, the poet, the eloquent speaker. Sick of the very names of your Lady Augustus and Florus am I, as ever I was of the dreary botanical titles of exotic plants, their antitypes, in the hothouse. Roses, violets, lilies for me. The out-of-door beauties, meadow and woodland sweets, forget-me-nots and heartsease. Pausing a while, he proceeded anon, for none made answer. Oh, if our high-born girls knew only the grace, the attraction. Labor, and labor alone, can add to the beauty of woman. Truly, the milliner's trade would quickly, I think, be at discount. All the waste and loss in silk and satin be saved us, save for purposes truly and widely productive. That's right. Take off your coat to it, Philip, cried Lindsay, Outside in the garden?
Lindsay, cigar-loving hero, the piper, the dialectician.
Take off your coat to it, Philip.
Well, well, said Houston, resuming. Laugh if you please at my novel economy. Listen to this, though. As for myself, and apart from economy wholly, believe me, never I properly felt the relation of man to woman. Though to the dancing master I went, perforce for a quarter, where a dismal quadrille, where good-looking girls in plenty. Though, too, schoolgirl cousins were mine, a bevy of beauties. Never. Of course you will laugh, but of course all the same I shall say it. Never, believe me, revealed itself to me the sexual glory, till in some village fields, in holidays now getting stupid, one day sauntering,
long and listless, as Tennyson has it,
long and listless strolling, ungainly, in the hobbity boyhood, chance my eye fell aside on a capless, bonnetless maiden, bending with three-pronged fork in a garden uprooting potatoes. Was it the air? Who can say, or herself, or the charm of the labor? But a new thing was in me, and longing delicious possessed me.
Longing to take her and lift her and put her away from her slaving.
Was it to clasp her in lifting? Or was it to lift her by clasping? Was it embracing or aiding? Was most in my mind. Hard question. But a new thing was in me. I too was a youth among maidens. Was it the air? Who can say? But in part 'twas the charm of the labor. I was too awkward, too shy, a great deal, be assured, for advances. Shyly I shambled away, stopping oft, but afraid of returning. Shambled obliquely away, with furtive occasional side look. Long, though listless no more in my awkward hobby of boyhood, still, though new thing was in me, though vernal emotion, the secret, yes, amid prudent talk, the unimparted, mysterious secret, longing, the growing distress and sealed-up dishonor of boyhood, recognized now took its place, a relation o bliss unto others, though now the poets, whom love is the key to, revealed themselves to me, and in my dreams by Miranda, her Ferdinand, I sat unwearied. Though all the fuss about girls, the giggling and toying and coying, were not so strange as they had been, so incomprehensible purely, still, as before, and as now, balls, dances, and evening parties, shooting with bows, going shopping together, and hearing them singing, dangling beside them, and turning the leaves on the dreary piano, offering unneeded arms, performing dull farces of escort, seemed like a sort of unnatural up-in-the-air balloon work, or what to me is as hateful, a riding about in a carriage, utter divorcement from work, Mother Earth, and objects of living, as mere gratuitous trifling in presence of business and duty, as does the turning aside of the tourist to look at a landscape, seem in the steamer or coach to the merchant in haste for the city. Hungry and fainting for food, you ask me to join you in snapping. What but a pink paper comfit, with motto romantic inside it. Wishing to stock me a garden, I'm sent to a table of nosegays. Pretty I see it, and sweet, but they hardly would grow in my borders. Better a crust of black bread than a mountain of paper confections. Better a daisy in earth than a Delilah cut and gathered. Better a cowslip with the root than a prize carnation without it. That I allow, said Adam. But he, with a bit in his tooth, scarce, breathed a brief moment, and hurried exultingly on his rider, far over hillock and runnel and bramble, away in the champaign.
snorting defiance and force.
The white foam feckling his quarters, rein hanging loose to his neck, and head projected before him. Oh, if they knew and considered, unhappy ones! Oh, could they see, could but for a moment discern, how the blood of true gallantry kindles, how the old knightly religion, the chivalry, semi-quixotic, stirs in the veins of a man at seeing some delicate woman, serving him, toiling for him and the world, some tenderest girl now, overweighted, expectant of him, is it? Who shall, if only duly her burden be lightened, not wholly removed from her, mind you, lightened, if but by the love, the devotion man only can offer, grand on her pedestal rise,
as urn-bearing statue of Hellas.
Oh, could they feel at such moments how man's heart, as into Eden, carried anew, seems to see, like the gardener of earth uncorrupted, Eve from the hand of her Maker advancing, a helpmeet for him, Eve from his own flesh taken, a spirit restored to his spirit, spirit but not spirit only, himself whatever himself is, unto the mystery's end, sole helpmate meet to be with him. Oh, if only they saw and knew it! We soon should see them abandon boudoir, toilet, carriage, drawing-room, and ballroom,
satin for worsted exchange,
grass to Naples for linsey-woolsey, sandals of silk for clogs, for health lackadaisical fancies. So feel women, not dolls. So feel the sap of existence, circulate up through their roots from the faraway center of all things. Circulate up from the depths of the bud on the twig that is topmost. Yes, we should see them delighted ourselves in seeing,
bending with blue cotton gown,
skirted up, overstriped linsey-woolsey, milking the kine in the field, like Rachel, watering cattle, Rachel, when at the well the predestined beheld and kissed her, or, with pail upon head, like Dora, beloved of Alexis, comely, with well-poised pail, over neck arching soft to the shoulders, comely, with gracefulness act, one arm uplifted to stay it, home, from the river or pump moving stately and calm to the laundry, doing household work, as many sweet girls I have looked at, needful household work, which someone, after all, must do, needful, graceful, therefore, as washing, cooking, and scouring, or, if you please, with the fork in the garden uprooting potatoes, or, high-kilted, perhaps, cried Lindsay, at last successful. Lindsay, this long time swelling with scorn and pent-up fury, or high-kilted, perhaps, as once at Dundee I saw them, petticoats up to their knees, or it might be a little bit higher, matching their lily-white legs with clothes that they trod in the wash-tub. Laughter loud ensued, and seeing the tutor embarrassed, "It was from them, I suppose," said Arthur, smiling sedately. Lindsay learnt the tune we have all learnt from Lindsay. For oh, he was a roguey, the piper o' Dundee. Laughter ensued again, and the tutor, still slightly embarrassed, picked at the fallen thread, and commenced a reply to Hewson. There is truth in what you say, though truly much distorted. These, I think, no less than other Igarces, cloy one. Still there's truth, I own. I perfectly understand you. While the tutor was gathering his thoughts, continued Arthur, is not this just the same that one hears at common room breakfasts, or perhaps Trinity wines, about Gothic buildings and beauty? And with a start from the sofa came Hobbes, with a cry from the sofa. There where he lay, the great Hobbes, contemplative, corpulent, witty, author forgotten and silent of Kernus' phrase and fancy, mute and exuberant by turns, a fountain at intervals plain, mute and abstracted, or strong and abundant as rain in the tropics, studious, careless of dress, inobservant, by smooth persuasions, lately decoyed into kilt on example of Hope in the Piper. Hope, Antinous mere, Hyperion of calves the piper. Beautiful, he cried, upleaping, analogy perfect to madness. O inexhaustible source of thought, shall I call it, or fancy? Wonderful spring, at whose touch doors fly, what a vista disclosing! Exquisite germ! Ah, no, crude fingers shall not soil thee. Rest, lovely pearl, in my brain, and slowly mature in the oyster. Let exquisite pearl, they were laughing, and corpulent oyster. Ah, could they only be taught, he resumed, by a pugin of women, how even churning and washing, the dairy, the scullery duties, wait but a touch to redeem and convert them to charms and attractions. Scrubbing requires for true grace, but frank and artistic handling, and the removal of slops to be ornamentally treated. Philip, who speaks like a book, retiring, pausing, he added, Philip here, who speaks like a folio, sayest thou, piper? Philip shall write a book, a treatise upon the laws of architectural beauty and application to women. Illustrations, of course, and a Parker's glossary pendant, where shall in specimens seen be the sculliony stumpy columnar, which to a reverent taste is perhaps the most moving of any, rising to grace of true woman in English the early and later, charming us still fulfilling the richer and loftier stages. Lost ere we end, and the lady debased, and the lady flamboyant. Thence, why in satire and spite too merciless onward pursue her? Hither to hideous close, modern florid, modern fine lady?
No, I will leave it to you, my Philip, my pugin of women.
Leave it to Arthur, said Adam, to think and not to play with. You are young, you know, he said, resuming to Philip. Young you are, he proceeded, with something of a fervour to hasten. You are a boy. When you grow a man, you'll find things to alter. You'll learn to seek the good, to scorn the attractive, scorn all mere cosmetics, as now of rank and fashion. Delicate hands, and wealth, so then of poverty also. Poverty truly attractive, more truly, I bear you witness. Good, wherever found, will you choose, be it humble or stately. Happy if you only find, in finding do not lose it. Yes, we must seek what is good, and always it only, not indeed absolute good, good for us, as is said in the Ethics, that which is good for ourselves, our proper selves, our best selves.
This, if you find in another, desert not, whatever you call it.
Call it likeness of souls. Call it anything else you fancy. Perfect response, if you please, to what would in us be most perfect. Answer most searching, to what in ourselves is profoundest and shyest. If you find in another, desert not, wherever you find it. Happy if only you find, and finding do not lose it. Ah, you have much to learn. We can't know it all at 20. You are a boy, as I said. When you grow a man, you'll say so. This is the answer he had from the eager, impetuous Hewson. Yes, I say it now. I know I'm young, and know, too, how the grown-up man puts the youthful instinct, learns to deal with the good, but what good is, discerns not, learns to handle the helm, but breaks the compass to steer by. In the intuitive, loses far more than is gained discursive, or in the lingo you love, the lingo emphatic of Ulrich, gets up the form syllogistic, ignoring the premise in matter. While he spoke, Adam rose, sat again, and dropping his eyelids, bowed his head into his hands, and rested his hands on the table. So for a minute he sat. the one first minute of silence, looked up at last, and laughed, and answered, speaking serenely, but still with the moisture about the eyelids. Trolley, queer fellow is Hewson, forbidding him choose good only. Thus to upbraid me with years, chill years that are thickening to 40. Nay, never talk. Listen now. What I say you can't apprehend. No, you are looking elsewhere. You will not ever, I fancy, till you ignore your premise, repairing the loss by a new one, till you discard your compass, if not for instruction in steering, yet to purchase a better and pay, I suppose, for the purchase. So much in repartee. But let us return to the question. Partly you rest on truth, old truth, the duty of duty. Partly on error, you long for equality. Aye, cried the piper, that's the sore place, the confounded égalité, French manufacturer. He is the same as the Chartist, who made the address in Ireland. What? It is not one man, fellow men, as good as another? Faith, replied Pat, a deal better too. So rattled the piper. But undisturbed in his tenor, the tutor, partly in error, seeking equality. Is not one woman as good as another? I, with the Irish answer, yes, better too. The poor, better full off than richer, than loftier, better the lower. Irrespective of wealth and of poverty, pain and enjoyment. Women all of their duties, the one as well as the other. Are all duties alike? Do all alike fulfill them? Is it to these we must look? And in these we are not on a level. Neither in these, nor in gifts, nor attainments, nor requirements. However noble the dream of equality, mark you, Philip, nowhere equality reigns in God's sublime creations. Star is not equal to star, nor blossom the same as blossom. Herb is not equal to herb, any more than plant to plant. True, that the plant should be rooted in earth, I granted you wholly, and that the daisy in earth surpass the cut carnation. Only the rooted carnation surpasses the rooted daisy. There is one glory of daisies, another of carnations. Foolish were budding carnation, and gay parterre by greenhouse. Should it decline to accept the nurture of gardeners give it? Should it refuse to expand to sun in genial summer, simply because the field daisy that grows in the grass play beside it cannot, for some cause or other, develops and be a carnation? Would not the daisy itself petition its scrupulous neighbor? Up, grow, bloom, forget me, be beautiful, even to proudness, even for the sake of myself and the other poor daisies like me. Rooted in earth should it be, carnation alike or daisy, that I grant and refer to you, Shakespeare, on gillyflowers, where in the winter's tale Latonis Perdita questions, education and manners, accomplishments, refinements, waltz, peradventure, and polka, the knowledge of music and drawing. All these things are nature's, to nature dear and precious. We must do something, man, woman alike. I own it. Yes, but woman and man and lady and gentleman is not lost, extinct. It lives. If not, God help them, change them. We must all do something, and in my judgment do it. In our station, independent of it, but not regardless. Holding it, not for enjoyment, but because we cannot change it. Ah, replied Philip, alas, the noted phrase of the prayer book. Doing our duty in that state of life to which God has called us, seems to me always to mean, when the little rich boys say it, standing in the velvet frock by mamma's brocketed flounces, eyeing her gold-fastened book, and the chain, and the watch at her bosom, seems to me always to mean, eat, drink, and never mind others. Nay, replied Adam, smiling, so far your economy leads me. Velvet and gold brochet are no wise to my fancy. Benefit of trade, I see, is mockery, vile, and delusion. Nay, he added, believe me, I like luxurious living, even as little as you, and grieve in my soul not seldom, more for the rich indeed than the poor, who are not so guilty. Ah, replied Philip again. But as for the rest of the story, truly I see a good deal in the daisy carnation fable, though I should like to be clear what standing in the earth means. But as you said to me when this long discussion started, there's truth in what you say, though I don't quite understand you. So the discussion ended, and Arthur rose up smiling.
Now quoth he, that Philip daren't bully you more.
It is my turn. How will my argument please you? Tomorrow we start on our travel. And took up Hope the chorus. Tomorrow we start on our travel. Lo, the weather is golden. The weather glass say they are rising. 4 weeks here have we read. 4 weeks will we read hereafter. 3 weeks hence we'll return and revisit our dismal classics. 3 weeks hence for just our vision of classes and classics. Farewell ye, meantime, forgotten, unnamed, undreamt of, history, science, and poets. Lo, deep in the dustiest cupboard. Thucky did.
Olorus' son, Helimosian.
Here lieth buried. Slumber in the little and Scott, a musical shaft of old Athens. Dishes and fishes, bird, beast, and Sesquican blackguard. Sleep, weary ghosts, be at peace, abide in your lexicon limbo. Sleep is in your lava, for ages, your Herculean kindred. Sleepin' for aught would I care, the sleep that knows no waking. Aeschylus,
Sophocles,
Homer, Herodotus, Pindar, and Plato. 3 weeks hence be it time to exhume our dreary classics. And in the chorus join Lindsay, the piper, the dialectician.
3 weeks hence we return to the shop, and the wash-hand-stand basin.
3 weeks hence unbury Thickside and Harry Aldrich. But the tutor inquired, the grave man nicknamed Adam. Who are they that go, and when they do promise returning? And a silence ensued, and the tutor himself continued. Airly remains, I presume, he continued, and Hobbes and Hewson, Lindsay and Arthur and Hope, to verify Black as a quorum. Answer was made by him by Philip, the poet, the eloquent speaker. Airly remains, I presume, was the answer, and Hobbes, pre-adventure. Tari, let Airly, may fairly, and Hobbes, brief kilted hero. Tarry, let Hobson kill it, and Airly abide in his breeches. Tarry, let these and read, 4 Pindaras apiece, and it like them. Weary of reading am I, and weary of walks prescribed to us. Weary of ethic and logic, of rhetoric, yet more weary, eager to range over heather unfettered of gilly and marquise. I will away with the rest, and bury my hairy toddle. And to the tutor rejoining, be mindful, you go up at Easter. This was the answer returned by Philip, the Pugin of women. Good are the ethics, I wis. Good absolute, not for me, though. Good too logic, of course, in itself, but not in fine weather. 3 weeks hence, with rain, to prudence, temperance, justice, virtues moral and mental, with Latin prose included. 3 weeks hence we return, to cares of classes and classics. I will away with the rest, and bury my hairy toddle. But the tutor inquired, and the grave man nicknamed Adam, where do you mean to go? "And whom do you mean to visit?" And he was answered by Hope, the Viscount, his honour valet. Kit Kat, a Trinity coach, has a party at Drummond Row, up on the side of Loch Ness,
in the beautiful valley of Urquhart.
Mainwaring says they will lodge us, and feed us, and give us a lift too. Only they talk ere long to remove the Glenmorrison. Then at Castleton, high in Bremere, strange home with his earliest party, Harrison fresh from the schools, his James and Jones and Lauder. Thirdly, a Cambridge man I know, Smith, a senior wrangler, with a mathematical score hangs out in Inverary. Finally, too, from the kilt and sofa, said Hobbs in conclusion. Finally, Philip must hunt for a home of the probable poacher, hid in the braes of Loch Bar, and the Bothie of what-did-he-call-it, hopeless of you and us, of gillies and marquises, hopeless, weary of ethics and logic, Cato uprooter. Study the question of sex in Bothie, what-did-he-call-it.
End of chapter 2. The Bothie of Toper-na-Fuosich by Arthur Clough. This LibriVox recording is part of the public domain. So in the golden morning they parted and went to the westward. In the cottage with Ariel and Hobbs remained the tutor, reading 9 hours a day with the tutor, Hobbs and Ariel. 1 between bathing and breakfast,
and 6 before it was dinner. Breakfast at 8, at 4, after bathing again, the dinner. Finally,
2
after walking and tea, from 9 to 11. Ariel and Adam, at evening, their quiet stroll together, took on the terrace road with the western hills before them. Hobbs, only rarely a third, now and then in the cottage remaining. And, after dinner, Aputic would rush yet again to his reading. Other times, stung by the ostrium of some swift-working conception, ranged, tearing on in his fury, and echo, through the mountains. Heedless of scenery, heedless of bogs and perspiration. Far in the peaks unwitting, the hares and ptarmigan starting. And 3 weeks passed, the 3 weeks, 3 days over. Neither letter had come, nor casual tiding any, and the pupils grumbled. The tutor became uneasy, and in the golden weather they wondered, and watched to the westward. There is a stream, I name not its name, lest inquisitive tourist hunt it, and make a lion, and get it at last into guidebooks, springing far off from the loch, unexplored in the folds of great mountains, falling 2 miles through the rowan and stunted aldar, enveloped, then 4 more in a forest of pine, where broad and ample spreads to convey it the glen with heathery slopes on both sides. Broad and fair, the stream, with occasional falls and narrows. But, where the lateral glen approaches the vale of the river, met and blocked by huge interposing mass of granite, scarce by a channel deep cut, raging up and raging onward, forces its flood through a passage so narrow a lady would step it.
There, across the great rocky wharves,
a wooden bridge goes, carrying a path to the forest, below 300 yards, say, lower in level some 25 feet, through flats of shingle, stepping stones, a cart track across in the open valley. But in the interval here, the boiling, pent-up water frees itself a final descent, attaining a basin 10 feet wide and 18 long, with whiteness and fury, occupied partly, but mostly peculid, pure, a mere, beautiful there, for the color derived from green rocks under. Beautiful, most of all, where beads of foam uprising mingle clouds of white with the delicate hue of stillness, cliff over cliff for its sides, with rowan and pendant birch boughs. Here it lies, unthought of above at the bridge and pathway, still more concealed from below by wood and rocky projection. You are shut in, left alone with yourself in perfection of water, hid on all sides, left alone with yourself and the goddess of bathing. Here, the pride of plunger, you stride the fall and clear it. Here, the delight of the bather, you roll in beaded sparklings. Here, in pure green depth, drop down from lofty ledges. Hither, a month agone, they had come and discovered. Hither, long a design, but long unaccountably left unaccomplished, leaving the well-known bridge and pathway above to the forest. Turning below from the track of carts over stone and shingle, piercing a wood, and skirting a narrow and natural causeway, under the rocky wall that hedges the bed of streamlet, rounded a craggy point, and saw on sudden before them slabs of rock and a tiny beach, the perfection of water. Picture-like beauty, seclusion, sublime, and the goddess of bathing. There they bathed, of course, and Arthur, the glory of the headers, leapt from the ledges with hope. He 20 feet, he 30. There, overbold, great Hobbs from a 10-foot height descended, prone, as a quadruped, prone with hands and feet pretending. There is a sparkling champagne, ecstatic. They shrieked and shouted. Hobbs's gutter! The piper entiles the spot, profanely. Hope, the glory would have, after Arthur, the glory of headers. But, for before they departed, in shy and fugitive reflex, here, in the eddies, and there, did the splendor of Jupiter glimmer. Adam adjudged it the name of Hesperus, star of the evening. Hither, to Hesperus, now, the star of the evening above them. Come in their lonelier walk, the pupils twain and tutor, turned from the track of carts, and passing the stone and shingle, piercing the wood, and skirting the stream by the natural causeway, rounded the craggy point, and now at their ease looked up, and lo, on the rocky ledge, regardant, the glory of headers, lo, on the beach expecting the plunge, not cigarless, the piper. And they looked and wondered, incredulous, looking yet once more. Yes, it was he, on the ledge, bare-limbed, and Apollo down-gazing, eyeing one moment the beauty of life, ere he flung himself in it, eyeing through the eddy green waters the green-tinted floor underneath them, eyeing the bead on the surface, the bead like a cloud, rising to it, drinking in deep in his soul the beautiful hue and the clearness. Arthur, the shapely, the brave, the unboasting, the glory of headers. Yes, and with fragrant weed, by his knapsack, spectator and critic. Seated on slab, by the margin, the piper, the cloud compeller. Yes, they were come, were restored to the party, its grace and its gladness. Yes, we're here, as of old, the light-giving orb of the household. Arthur, the shapely, the tranquil, the strength and contentment diffusing, in the pure presence of whom none could quarrel long, nor be pettish, and the gay fountain of mirth. Yes, they were come, were here. But Hewson and Hope? Where are they then? Are they behind, travel sore, or ahead, going straight by the pathway? And from his seat and cigar spoke the piper, the cloud compeller. Hope with the uncle abiding for shooting. Ah, me.
Were I with him?
Ah, good boy that I am, to have stuck to my word and my reading. Good boy to be here, far away, who might be at Balak. Only one day to have stayed, who might have been welcome for 7 whole days in castle and forest, gay in the mazy, moving, imbibing the rosy, and pointing a gun at the horny. And the tutor impatient, expectant, interrupted. Hope with the uncle, and Hewson, With him? Or where have you left him? And from his seat and cigar spoke the piper, the cloud compeller. Hope with the uncle, and Hewson. Why, Hewson we left in Rannoch, by the loch side and the pines, in the farmer's house, reflecting, helping to shear and dry clothes, and it may be, uproot potatoes, studying the question of sex, though not at what did he call it. And the tutor's countenance fell, perplexed, dumbfounded. Stood he, slow and with pain, disengaging jest from earnest. He is not far from home, said Arthur from the water. He will be with us tomorrow, at latest, or the next day. And he was even more reassured by the piper's rejoinder. Can he come by mail, and have got to the cottage before us? So to the cottage they went, and Philip was not at the cottage, but by mail was a letter from Hope, who himself was to follow. 2 whole days and nights succeeding brought not Philip. 2 whole days and nights exhausted not question and story. For it was told, the piper narrating, corrected of Arthur, often by word, corrected more often by smile and motion,
how they had been to Iona,
to Staffa, to Skye, to Colden, Sen Loch Awe, Loch Tay, Loch Fin, Loch Ness, Loch Arkaig, been up to Venivis, Ben More, Ben Crucken, Ben Mukdihu, how they had walked and eaten, and drunken and slept in kitchens, slept upon floors of kitchens, and tasted the real Glenviet, walked up perpendicular hills, and also down them, hither and thither had been, and this and that had witnessed, left not a thing to be done, and had not a brown remaining. For it was told withal, he telling, and he correcting, how they had met, they believed, with St. John the Muckle Heart-slayer, how in the race they had run, and beaten the gillies of Rannoch, how in forbidden glens, in Mar, and midmost Athol, Philip insisting hotly, and Arthur and Hope compliant, they defied the keepers, the piper alone protesting, liking the fun, it was plain, in his heart, but tender of game law. Yet, too, in Malay Glen, the heart of Loch Illis fair forest, where Scotch firs are darkest and amplest, and intermingle, grandly with rowan and ash. In Mar you have no ashes. There the pond is alone, or relived by birch and alder. How in Mealy Fair, while stags were starting before, they made the watcher believe they were guests from the Arcticary. And there was told, moreover, he telling, the other correcting, often by word, more often by mute significant motion. Much of Cambridge coach, and his pupils at Invery, huge barbarian pupils, expanded in infinite series, firing off signal guns, great scandal, from window to window, for they were lodging perforce in distant and numerous houses. Signals when, one retiring, another should go to the tutor. Much too of Kit-Cat, of course, and the party at Drumanoch, Mainwaring, Foley, and Fraser, their idleness horrid and dog-cart. Drumanoch was seedy, and Glen Morson adequate, but at Castleton, High and Bremer, were the clippingest places for bathing. One by the bridge in the village, indecent, the town hall christened, where Howbeit had Lauder been bathing, and Harrison also. Harrison even, the tutor.
Another, like Herspes,
Here, and up the waters of Eye, 6 at least, all stunners. And this was told, the piper narrating, and Arthur correcting, colouring he, dilating, magnoliant, glorifying in picture. He, to matter of fact, still softening, parring, abating. He to the great, might have been, upsoaring, sublime, ideal. He to the merest it was, restricting, diminishing, dwarfing, river to streamlet reducing, and fall to slope subduing. So it was told, the piper narrating, corrected of Arthur, how under Lynn of Dee, where over rocks, between rocks, freed from prison, the river comes, pouring, rolling, rushing. Then at sudden descent, goes sliding, gliding, unbroken, falling, sliding, gliding, in narrow space collected, save for a curl at the end where the curve rejoins the level, save for a ripple at last, a sheeted descent unbroken. How to the element offering their bodies, down shooting the fall. They mingled themselves with the flood and the force of imperious water. And it was told, too, Arthur narrating, the piper correcting, how, as one comes to the level, the weight of the downward impulse carries the head under water, delicious, ineffable. How the piper, here ducked and blinded, got stray and borne off by the current, wounded his lily-white thighs below at the craggy corner. And it was told, the piper resuming, corrected of Arthur, more by word than motion, change ominous noted of Adam, how at the floating bridge of Lagan one morning at sunrise, came in default of the ferryman out of her bed a brave lassie, and, as Philip and she together were turning the handles, by which the chain is wound that works it across the water, hands intermingled with hands, and, at last, they stepped from the Bothie. Turning about, they saw lips also mingle with lips, but that was flatly denied and loudly exclaimed at by Arthur. How at the general's hut, the inn by the fall of the foyers, where o'er the loch looks at you the summit of Melancholy. How here, too, he was hunted at morning, and found in the kitchen, watching the porridge being made, pronouncing them smoked for certain, watching the porridge being made, and asking the lassie that made them, what was the Gaelic for girl, and what was the Gaelic for pretty? How in confusion he shouldered his knapsack, yet blushingly stammered, waving a hand to the lassie, that blushingly bent o'er the porridge. Something outlandish, slan something, slan leet, he believed. Kelig Luch. That was Gaelic, it seemed, for I bid you good-bye, bonny lassie. Arthur allowed it was true, not of Philip, but of Piper, and it was told by the piper, while Arthur looked at the window. How in the thunder and rain, it is wetter far to the westward, thunder and rain and wind, losing heart and road, they were welcomed, and 3 days detained at a farm by the loch side of Roanoke. How in 3 days' detention was Philip observed to be smitten by golden-haired Katy, the youngest and comeliest daughter. Was he not seen? Even Arthur observed it, from breakfast to bedtime, following her motions with eyes ever brightening, softening ever. Did he not fume, fret, and fidget to find her stand waiting at a table? Was he not one mere St. Vitus dance, when he saw her at nightfall go through the rain to fetch peat, through beating rain to the peat stack? How it so happened a dance was given by Grant of Glenshkey, and with the farmer they went as the farmer's guest to attend it. Philip stayed dancing till daylight, and evermore with Katy. How the whole next afternoon he was with her away in the shearing, and the next morning ensuing was found in the ingle beside her, kneeling, picking the peats from her apron, blowing together, both between laughing, with lips disintended to kindle the embers. Lips were so near to lips, one living cheek to another. Though it was true, he was shy, strangely shy, yet it was not nature. Was it not nature? the piper averred. There shouldn't be kissing. Then they packed up their knapsack at noon and proposed to be starting. Philip professed he was lame, would leave in the morning and follow. Follow he did not, do Burns. When you go up a glen, follow after? Follow he had not, nor left, nor needles leave the lodestone. Nay, too, they turned after starting. Look through the trees at the corner. Lo, on the rocks by the lake, there he was, the lassie beside him. Lo, there he was, stooping by her, and helping with stones from water, safe in the wind to keep down the clothes she would spread for drying. There had they left him, and there, if Katy was there, was Philip, drying clothes, making fires, making love, getting on too by this time, though he was shy, so exceedingly shy. You may say so, said Arthur. For the first time they had known with a peevish intonation. Did not the piper himself flirt more in a single evening, namely, with Janet the elder, than Philip in all our sojourn? Philip had stayed, it was true. The piper was loth to depart too. Harder is parting from Janet than e'en from the keeper at Balloch. And it was certain that Philip was lame. Yes, and his excuses, answered the piper indeed. Nay, truly, said Hobbs, interposing. Did you not say she was seen every day in her beauty and bedgown, doing plain housework, as washing, cooking, scouring? How could he help but love her? Nor lack there, of course, the attention that in a blue cotton print tucked up, over-striped, linsey-woolsey, barefoot, bare-legged, he beheld her, with arms bare up to the elbows, bending with fork in her hand in a garden uprooting potatoes? Is not Katy as Rachel, and is not Philip a Jacob? Truly Jacob, supplanting an hairy Highland Esau. Shall not he, love entertained, feed sheep for the Laban of Rannoch? O happy patriarch he, the long servitude ended of wooing.
If when he wake in the morning,
he find not a Leah beside him. But the tutor inquired, who had bit his lip to bleeding, how far off is the place? Who will guide me there tomorrow? But by the mail, ere the morrow, came hope and brought new tidings. Round by the Rannoch had come, and Philip was not at Rannoch. He had left that noon, an hour ago. With the lassie? With her? The piper exclaimed. Undoubtedly. By great Jingo! And upon that he arose, slapping both his thighs like a hero, partly for emphasis only, to mark his conviction, but also part in delight at fun and the joy of eventful living. Really, I did not inquire, answered Hope, but I hardly think it. Janet, Piper, your friend, I saw, and she didn't say so, though she asked a good deal about Philip and where he had gone to. One odd thing, by the by, he continued, befell me while standing with her. Standing beside her, I saw a girl pass. I thought I had seen her, somewhat remarkable looking, elsewhere, and asked what her name was. Alepsy Mackay, she answered, the daughter of David. She's stopping, just above there with her uncle. And David Mackay, where lives he? It's away west, she replied. They call it
Toper-na-Fuosich. End of chapter 3. Of the Bothie of Toper-na-Fuosich by Arthur Clough. This LibriVox recording is part of the public domain. So in the golden weather they waited, but Philip came not. Sunday, 6 days thence, a letter arrived in his writing. But, O Muse,
that encompassest earth like the ambient ether, swifter than steamer or railway, or magical missive electric, belting like Ariel the sphere with the star-like trail of thy travel. Thou with thy poet, to mortals mere post office second-hand knowledge, leaving, wilt seek in the moorland of Renoke the wandering hero. There it is, there, in the lofty Lochaber, where silent upheaving, heaving from ocean to sky, and under snow winds of September, visibly whitening at morn to darken by noon in the shining, rise in their mighty foundations, the brethren huge of Benevice, there, or westward away, where roads unknown to Loch Nevish, and the great peaks look abroad over the sky to the westernmost islands. There it is, there, or there. We shall find our wandering hero. Here in Banoke, here in Lochcar, anon, in Lochiel, Nadart, Croydart, Moydart, Moor, Adenmerken. Here I see him, and here I see him. Anon, I lose him. Even as the cloud passing steadily unseen from the mountain to mountain, leaving the crest of Benmore to be palpable next on Beverleach, or like hawk on a hill, which ranges and soars in its hunting, seen and unseen by turns, now here, now in either eludent. Wherefore like cloud of Benmore, or hawk overranging the mountains, where in Benedoke, drear, in the lofty Lochbar, Lochiel, Nanart, Croydart, Moydart, Morir, and Adamerken, wandereth he, who should either with Adam be studying logic, or by the loch side of Renoke, on Katie his rhetoric using. He who, 3 weeks past, now long ago, to the cottage, punctual promised return, to cares of classes and classes. He who smit to the heart by that youngest, comeliest daughter, bent, unregardful of spies, at her feet, spreading clothes from her washtub? Can it be with him, through Banoke, Deary, Lochbar, Lochiel, Noidart, Croydart, Moydart, Morir, and Adamerken? Can it be with him? He beareth the golden-haired lassie of Renoke, this fierce, furious walking, o'er mountain top and moorland, sleeping and shielding in Bothie, with drover on hillside sleeping, folded and plaid, where sheep are strewn thicker than rocks by Loch Ewen. This fierce, furious travelling, unwearying, cannot in truth be merely the wedding tour succeeding the week of wooing. No, wherever be Katie, with Philip she is not. I see him. Lo, and he sitteth alone, and these are his words in the mountain. Souls of the dead, one fancies, can enter and be with the living. Would I were dead, I keep saying, that so I could go and uphold her. Spirits escaped from the body can enter and be with the living. Entering unseen, and retiring unquestioned, they bring, do they feel too? Joy, pure joy, as they mingle and mix in her essence with essence. Would I were dead, I keep saying, that so I could go and uphold her. Joy, pure joy, bringing with them, and when they retire, leaving after, no cruel shame, no prostration, despondency, memories rather, sweet, happy hopes bequeathing. Ah, wherefore not thus with the living? Would I were dead, I keep saying, that so I could go and uphold her. Is it impossible? Say you, these passionate, fervent impulses, these projections of spirit to spirit, these inward embraces, should in strange ways, in her dreams, should visit her, strengthen her, shield her. Is it possible, rather, that these great floods of feeling, setting in daily, from me towards her, should impotent wholly, bring neither sound nor motion to that sweet shore they heave to? A flux here, and there is no stir, no pulse of influx. It must reverberate surely, reverberate idly, it may be. Yea, hath he set us our bounds, which we shall not pass, and cannot? Would I were dead, I keep saying, that so I could go and uphold her. Surely, surely, when sleepless I lie in the mountain lamenting, surely, surely, she hears in her dreams a voice, I am with thee, saying, although not with thee, behold, for we mated our spirits. Then, when we stood in the chamber, and knew not the words we were saying, yea, if she felt me within her, when not with one finger I touched her, surely she knows it, and feels it, while sorrowing here in the moorland. Would I were dead, I keep saying, so that I could go and uphold her. Spirits with spirits commingle and separate, lightly as winds do. Spice laden south, with the ocean-born zephyr, they mingle and sunder, no sad remorses for them, no visions of horror and vileness. Elements fuse and resolve, as affinity draws and repels them. We, if we touch, must remain, if attracted, cohere to the ending. Guilty we are, if we do not, and yet if we would, we could not. Would I were dead, I keep saying, so I could go and uphold her. Surely the force that here sweeps me along in its violent impulse, surely my strength shall be in her, my help and my protection about her. Surely an inner sweet gladness and vigor of joy shall sustain her, till, the brief winter are past, her own true sap in the springtide, rise, and the tree I have bared
Be verdurous, e'en as aforetime.
Surely it may be, it should be, it must be, yet ever and ever. Would I were dead, I keep saying, that so I could go and uphold her. No. Where be Katie? With Philip she is not. Behold.
For
here he is sitting alone. These are his words in the mountain. And at the farm on the loch side of Roanoke, in parlor and kitchen, hark! There is music, yeah, flowing of music, of milk and of whiskey, dancing and drinking, the young and the old, the spectators and the actors. Never not actors the young, and the old not always spectators. Lo, I see piping and dancing, and whom in the midst of the battle, cantering loudly along there. Or look you, with arms uplifted, whistling and snapping his fingers, and seizing his gay smiling Janet. Whom? Whom else but the piper? The wary, precognizant piper, who, for the love of gay Janet, and mindful old invitation, putting it quite as a duty and urging grave claims to attention. True to his knight had crossed over, there goeth he, brimful of music, like to cork tossed by the eddies that foam under furious lasher, like to skiff lifted, uplifted, and lock by the swift swelling sluices. So with music possessing him, swaying him, goeth he, look you, swinging and flinging, and stamping and tramping, and grasping and clasping, Whom but gay Janet? Him rivaling Hobbes, brief kilted of heroes. Enters, O stoutest, O rashest of creatures, mere fool of a Saxon. Skilless of Philibeg, skilless of real too, the whirl and the twirl out. Him see I frisking and whisking, and ever at swifter Greighton, under brief curtain revealing broad acres, not a broadcloth. Him see I there, and the piper what visions beholds not. Him is Honour, and Arthur, with Janet our piper. And is it? O marvels of marvels! He too in the maze of the mazy, skipping and tripping, though stately, though languid, with head on one shoulder, airily, with sight of waistcoat, the golden-haired Katy consoling. Katy, who's simple and comely, and smiling and blushing as ever. What though she wear on the neck blue kerchief, remembered as Philip's? Seems in her maidenly freedom she needs small concealment of waistcoats. Wherefore, and Benoak, then far away, and Lochabar and Lochiel, Nadart, Crodart, Moidart, Morer, Ardenamucken, wanders o'er mountain and moorland, and shielding or Bothie is sleeping. He who, and why should he not then?
Capricious.
Or is it rejected? Might to the piping of Renoak be pressing the thrilling fair fingers, might, as he clasped her, transmit to her bosom the throb of his own, yea, might in the joy of the real be wooing and winning his Katy? What is it Adam reads far off by himself in the cottage? Reads yet again with emotion, again is preparing to answer. Answered before, too, it had been at once, on the spur of the moment. Answered, but oft reconsidered, and after thought needs will be spoken. What is it Adam is reading? What is it Philip had written? There was it writ, how Philip, possessed undoubtedly had been, deeply entirely possessed by the charm of the maiden of Renoak, deeply as never before, how sweet and bewitching he felt her. Seen still before him at work, in the garden, the byre, the kitchen, how it was beautiful to him to stoop at her side in the shearing, binding uncouthly the ears that fell from her dexterous sickle, binding uncouthly the stooks, which she laid by her sickle to straighten. How at the dance he had broken through shyness, for 4 days after, lived on her eyes, unspeaking what lacked not articulate speaking. How in the room where he slept, he met her cleaning and dusting. How he unmeaningly talked of clothes for the washing, of this thing, that thing, and still as he spoke, felt folded unto her, united, yea, without touch united, essentially, bodily with her, felt, too, that she too was feeling what he did, howbeit they parted, how by a kiss from her lips he had seemed made nobler and stronger, yea, for the first time in life a man complete and perfect, so forth, much that had before too was heard of, howbeit they parted. What had ended it all was singular, he said, very. I was walking along some 2 miles from the cottage, full of my dreamings. A girl went by in a party with others. She had a cloak on, was stepping quickly, for rain was beginning. But as she passed from the hood I saw her eyes look at me. So quick at glance, so regardless, I, that although I felt it, you couldn't properly say our eyes met. She cast it and left it. It was 3 minutes perhaps ere I knew what it was. I had seen her somewhere before, I am sure, but that wasn't it, nor its import. No, it had seemed to regard me with simple superior insight,
Quietly saying to itself,
yes, there he is still in his fancy, letting drop from him at random as things not worth considering. All the benefits gathered and put in his hands by fortune, losing a hold which others, content and unambitious, trying down here to keep up, know the value of better than he does. Was it this? Was it perhaps? Yes, there he is still in his fancy, doesn't yet see we have here just the things he is used to elsewhere, and that the things he likes here, elsewhere he wouldn't have looked at. People here, too, are people, and not as fairyland creatures. He is in a trance and possessed. I wonder how long to continue. It is a shame and a pity, and no good likely to follow. Something like this, but indeed I cannot the least define it. Only 3 hours thence I was off and away in the moorland, hiding myself from myself, if I could, the air within me. Kitty was not in the house, thank God. I saw her in passing, saw her unseen myself, with the pang of cruel desertion, poignant enough, which however made me walk the faster, like a terrible spur running into one's vitals and through them, turning me all into pain and sending me off, I suppose like one that is shot to the heart and leaps up in the air and is dying. What dear Katy thinks, God knows. Poor child! May she only think me a fool and a madman, and no more worth her remembering. Meantime, all through the mountains I tramp, and know not whither. Tramp along here, and think, and know not what I should think. Tell me then, why as I sleep amid hilltops high in the moorland, still in my dreams I am pacing the streets of the dissolute city, where dressy girls, slithering by upon pavements, give sign for accousting, paint on their beautiless cheeks, and hunger and shame in their bosoms, hunger by drink, and by that which they shudder, yet burn for, appeasing, hiding their shame, ah, God, in the glare of the public gaslights. Why, while I feel my ears catching, through slumber and the run of the streamlet, still I am pacing the pavement, and seeing the sign for accosting. Still I am passing those figures, not daring to look in their faces. Why, when the chill, ere the light of the daybreak uneasily wakes me, find I a cry in my heart, crying up to the heaven of heavens? No, great unjust judge, she is purity, I am the lost one. No, I defy thee, strike not, crush me if thou wilt, who deserve it. You will not think that I soberly look for such things for sweet Katy. Contemplate really, as possible even, thing that would make one think death luxury. Seek death, to get at damnation beyond it. No, but the vision is on me. I now first see how it happens. Feel how tender and soft is the heart of a girl, how passive fain it would be, how helpless, and helpless leads to destruction. Maiden reserve torn from off it, grows never again to reclothe it. Modesty broken through, once to a modesty, flies for protection. Desperate, braving when weakest the greatest and direst of dangers. Thinks to be bold and defiant at all times, cannot at all times think by ignoring to fill up that breach with ignoring but widens. Oh, who saws through the trunk, though he leave the tree up in the forest? When the next one casts it down, is his not the hand that smote it? Yea, and who barketh the tree is even as he that felleth. This is the answer, the second, which pondering along with emotion, there by himself in the cottage the tutor addressed to Philip. I was severe in my last, my dear Philip, and hasty. Forgive me. Yes, I was fain to reply ere I duly had read through your letter, but it was written in scraps and crossings and counter-crossings, hard to connect with each other correctly, and hard to decipher. Paper was scarce, I suppose. Forgive me. I write to console you. Grace is given of God, but knowledge is bought in the market. Knowledge needful for all, yet cannot be had for the asking. They are exceptional beings. One finds them distant and rarely, who endowed with a vision alike, and the interpretation, see by their neighbors' eyes, and their own still motions enlightened. In the beginning the end, in the acorn the oak of the forest, in the child of today its children to long generations, in a thought or wish, a life, a drama, an epos. Their inheritors is it, by mystical generation, airing the wisdom and ripeness of spirits gone by, without labor, owing what others by doing and suffering earn, what old men after long years of mistake and erasure are proud to have come to, sick with mistake and erasure possess when possession is idle. Yes, there is power upon earth, seen feebly in women and children, which can, laying one hand on the cover, read off unfaltering, leaf after leaf unlifted, the words of the closed book under. Words which we are poring at, hammering at, stumbling at, spelling. Rare is this, too many in pittance and modum given, working in instinct blind, in women and children and rustic. Rare in full measure, and often e'en then too maimed and hampered. One with the power of speech, and the spirit united of music. Lo, a new day has dawned, and the ages wait upon Shakespeare. Rare is this, wisdom mostly is bought for a price in the market. Rare is this, and happy, who buy so much for so little.
As I conceive, have you.
And as I hope, has Katie. Knowledge is needful for a man, needful no less for a woman.
Even in Highland glens,
where they vacant of shooter and tourist. Not that, of course, I mean to prefer your blindfold hurry, unto a soul that obeys, most loving yet most withholding, least unfeeling, though calm, self-contained, yet most unselfish, renders help and accepts it, a man among men that are brothers, views not plucks the beauty, adores and demands no embracing. So in its peaceful passage, whatever is lovely and gracious, still without seizing or spoiling, itself in itself reproducing. No, I do not see Philip herein on the level of Arthur. No, I do not compare still tarn with furious torrent. Yet will the tarn overflow, assuaged in the lake to be the torrent. Women are weak, as you say, and love of all things to be passive. Passive, patient, receptive, yea, even of wrong and misdoing. Even to force and misdoing with joy and victorious feeling. Passive, patient, receptive. For that is the strength of their being. Like to the earth, taking all things, and all to good converting. Ot is a snare indeed. Moreover, remember it, Philip. To the prestige of the richer, the lowly are prone to be yielding. Think that in dealing with them, they are raised to a different region, where old laws and morals are modified, lost, exist not.
Ignorant they, as they are.
They have but to conform and be yielding. There to protect and guide them.
The old, 'tis not unusual, avails not. But of a new, 'tis not right, must the soul be with travail delivered.
Yea, itself, of itself, engender and bear the protector. How shall a poor, quiet girl self-create the law and commandment? How shall a poor, silly sheep get endowed with the will of a woman?
But I said this in my letter before.
I need not repeat it. You have seen yourself the danger of pantry flirtation. You will not now run after what merely attracts and entices. Everyday things highly colored, and commonplace carved and gilded. You will henceforth seek only the good, and seek it, Philip, where it is, not more abundant perhaps, but more easily with, where you are sure to find it, less likely to run into error. In your station, regardful of that, though not dependent. But as I said, I have said this before and need not repeat it. So was the letter completed. A postscript afterward added, telling the tale that was told by the dancers returning from Roanoke. So was the letter completed, but query, whither to send it? Not for the will of the wisp, the cloud, and the hawk of the moorland, ranging afar through Lochar, Lochiel, Knoydart, and Croydart, have even the latest extensions adjusted a postal arrangement. Query, resolved very shortly when Hope, from his chamber descending, came with a note in his hand from the lady, his aunt, Valet, came and revealed the contents of a missive that brought strange tidings, came and announced to friends in a voice that was husky with wonder. Philip was staying at Bullock, was there in the room with the Countess. Philip to Bullock, his come and was dancing with Lady Maria. Philip at Bullock, he said, after all that was stately refusal. He there at last, O strange, O marvel, marvel of marvels. Early, the waistcoat, with Katy we left him this morning at Roanoke. Early with Katy, he said, and Philip with Lady Maria. Amid laughter, Adam paced up and down, repeating, over and over, unconscious, the phrase which Hope had lent him. Dancing at Bullock, you say? In the castle? With Lady Maria?
End of chapter 4. Five of the Bothie of Toper-na-Fuosich by Arthur Clough. This LibriVox recording is part of the public domain.
So in the cottage with Adam, the pupils 5 together, duly remained and read, and looked no more for Philip. Philip at Bullock shooting and dancing with Lady Maria. Breakfast at 8, and now, for brief September daylight. Luncheon at 2, and dinner at 7, or even later. 5 full hours between for loch and glen and the mountain. So in the joys of their life, and glory of shooting jackets. So they read and roamed, the pupils 5 with Adam. What if autumnal shower came frequent, and chill from the westward? What if on browner sward, with yellow leaves besprinkled, gemming the crispy blade, the delicate gossamer gemming, frequent and thick lay at the morning, the chilly bead of hoar frost, duly in mattoon still, and daily, whatever the weather, bathed in the rain and the frost and the mist with the glory of headers, hope. Hither also at times of cold, possible gutters, careless, unmindful, unconscious, would Hobbes, or they departed, come, in a heavy peacoat, his trouserless trunk enwrapping, come, under a coat, over brief, those lusty legs displaying, all from the shirt to the slipper, the natural man revealing. Duly there they bathed, and daily the twain, or the trio. There where the morning was custom, where o'er the ledge of granite, into the granite basin, descended the amber torrent, beautiful, very, to gaze in, ere plunging, beautiful also, perfect as picture,
as vision in tracing that comes to the sightless.
Though to the great granite jams, the stream and glen and mountain, purple with heather the mountain, the level stream in foreground, beautiful, seen by snatches and intervals of dressing, morn after morn, unsought for, recurring, themselves not to seeming, not spectators accepted into it, and mingled is truly part of it, as they are kine in the field lying there by the birches. So they bathed, they read, they roamed in glen and forest, far amid blackest pines, to the waterfall they shadow. Far up the long, long glen to the loch, and the loch beyond it. Deep under huge red cliffs, a secret, and off by the starlight, or the aurora, perchance, racing home for the 8 o'clock mutton. So they bathed, and read, and roamed in heathery highland. There, in the joy of their life and glory of shooting jackets, bathed and read and roamed, and looked no more for Philip. List to the letter that came from Philip at Block to Adam. Here I am, O friend, idle but learning wisdom. Doing penance, you think, content, if so, in my penance. You have conjectured a change must have come to my mind. I believe it. You will believe it too, if I tell you the thoughts that haunt me. Often I find myself saying, while watching in dance or on horseback, one that is here, in her freedom and grace and imperial sweetness. Often I find myself saying, old faith and doctrine abjuring, into the crucible casting philosophies, facts, convictions. Were it not well that the stem should be naked of leaf and tendril? Poverty-stricken, the barest, the smallest stick of the garden, flowerless, leafless, unlovely, for 99 long summers. So in the 100th, at last, were bloom for one day at the summit. So, but that fleeting flower were lovely as Lady Maria. Often I find myself saying, and not myself as I say it, what of the poor and the weary? Their labor and pain is needed. Perish the poor and weary. What can they better than perish? Perish in labor for her.
Who is worth the destruction of empires? What? For a mite or a mote, an impalpable odor of honor. Armies shall bleed, cities burn, and the soldier red from the storming. Carry hot rancor and lust into chambers of mothers and daughters. What? We ourselves for the cause of an hour encounter the battle. Slay and be slain. Lie rotting in hospital, hulk, in prison?
Die as a dog dies. Die secure that to uttermost ages not one ray shall illume our midnight shame and dishonor. Yea, till the silence of the fingers stand still on the world's great dial. Fathers and mothers, the gentle and the good of unborn generations, shall to their little ones point out our names for their loathing and horror? Yeah? And hoodmen in beer shops complain of a glory denied to them, which could not ever be theirs, more than now it is theirs as spectators? Which could not be, in all earth, if it were not for labor of hodmen? And I find myself saying, and what I'm saying discern not, dig in thy deep, dark prison, O miner, and finding to be thankful, though unpolished by thee, unto thee unseen in perfection, while thou art eating black bread in the poisonous air of thy cavern, far away glitter the gem on the peerless neck of a princess. Dig and starve, and be thankful. It is so, and thou hast been aiding. Often I find myself saying, an irony is it, or earnest. Yeah. What is more, to be rich, O ye rich, to be sublime in great houses, purple and delicate linen endure, to be of burgundy patient, suffer, that service be done to you, permit the page and the valet. Vex not your souls with annoyance of charity schools or of districts. Cast not to the swine of the sty the pearls that should gleam in your foreheads. Live, be lovely, forget them, be beautiful even to proudness, even for their poor sakes, whose happiness is to behold you. Live, be uncaring, be joyous, be sumptuous, only be lovely. Sumptuous not for display, and joyous not for enjoyment truly, for beauty and God's great glory. Yes, and I say, and it seems inspiration of good or of evil. It is not he that hath done it, and who shall dare gainsay it? It is not even of him who hath made us. Yea, for the lions roaring after their prey do seek their meat from God. Is it not even of him Woe, one kind or another? All the works of his hands hath disposed in a wonderful order, who hath made man as beasts, to live the one on the other, who hath made man as himself, to know the law, and accept it. You will wonder at this, my friend. I also wonder. But we must live and learn. We cannot know all things at 20. List to a letter of Hobbes to Philip, his friend at Bothie. All cathedrals are Christian. All Christians are cathedrals. Such is the orthodox doctrine. 'Tis ours with a slight variation. Every woman is, or should be, a cathedral, built on the ancient plan, a cathedral pure and perfect, built by that only law, that use be suggester of beauty, not be concealed that is done, but all things done to adornment. Meanest utilities seized as occasions to grace and embellish. So I had duly commenced in the spirit and style of my Philip. So I had formally opened the treatise upon the laws of architectural beauty and application to women. So had I writ. But my fancies are pulsed by tidings they tell me. Tidings! Ah me! Can it be then, that I the blasphemer accounted? Here am with reverent heed at the wondrous analogy working, pondering thy words and thy gestures. Wilt thou, a poet apostate, how are the mighty fallen? Willst thou, a shepherd travesty, how are the mighty fallen? With gun, with pipe no longer, teachest the woods to the re-echo thy game-killing recantations. Teach thy verse to extol Amarius, a countess' daughter.
But
Thou forgettest, bewildered, my master, that rightly considered, beauty must ever be useful. What truly is useful is graceful. She that is handy is handsome. Good dairymaids must be good-looking. If but the butter be nice, the tonsure of the elbow is shapely. If the cream cheeses be white, far whiter the hands that made them. If, but alas, is it true? While the pupil, alone in the cottage, slowly elaborates here thy system of feminine graces, thou in the place, its author, art dining, small-talking, and dancing and pressing the fingers kid-gloved of a Lady Maria. These are the final words that came to the tutor from Bothie. Yes, you have conquered, my friend. You will meet me, I hope, in Oxford, altered in manners and mind. I yield to the laws and arrangements, yield to the ancient existent decrees. Who am I to resist them? Yes, you will find me altered in mind, I think, as in manners. Anxious, too, to atone for 6 weeks' loss of your logic. So in the cottage with Adam, the pupils 5 together, read and bathed, and roamed, and thought not now of Philip. All in the joy of their life, and glory of shooting jackets.
End of chapter 5. Bothie of Toper-na-Fuosich by Arthur Clough. This LibriVox recording is part of the public domain.
Bright October was come, the misty bright October. Bright October was come to burn in glen and cottage, but the cottage was empty, the mattoon deserted. Who are these that walk by the shore of the salt sea water? Here in the dusky eve, on the road by the salt sea water. Who are these, and where? Is it no sweet seclusion? Blank hillsides slope down to a salt sea loch at their bases, scored by the runnels that fringe ere they end with rowan and alder. Cottages here and there outstanding bare on the mountain, peat-roofed, windowless, white, and the road underneath by the water. there on the blank hillside, looking down through the loch to the ocean. There with the runnel beside, and pine trees twain before it. There with the road underneath, and in sight of coaches and steamers. Dwelling of David Mackay and his daughters Ellipse and Bella. Sent up a column of smoke at the Bothie of Toper-na-Fuosich. And of the older twain, the elder was telling the younger, how in his pittance of soil he lived, and raised potatoes, barley and oats, in the Bothie where lived his father before him. Yet was smith by trade, and had travelled making horseshoes. Far in the army had some service with brave Sir Hector, wounded soon and discharged, disabled as smith and soldier. He had been many things since that, drover, schoolmaster, whitesmith, but when his brother died childless, came up hither, and although he could get fine work that would pay in the city, still was fain to abide where his father abode before him. And the lassies are bonny, I'm father and mother to them. Bonny and young, they are healthier here, I judge, and safer. I find myself time for their reading, writing, and learning. So on the road they walked, by the shore of the salt sea water, silent, a youth and maid, and elders twain conversing. This was the letter that came when Adam was leaving the cottage. If you can manage to see me before going off to Dartmoor, come by Tuesday's coach through Glencoe. You have not seen it. Stop at the ferry below and ask your way. You will wonder there, however, I am. To the Bothie of Toper-na-Fuosich. And on another scrap of the next day's date was written, it was by accident purely I lit on the place I was going, quietly travelling homeward, by one of these wretched coaches. One of the horses cast a shoe, and a farmer passing said, "Old David, you're man." A clever fellow at shoeing, once. Just up by the firs, they called it Toper-na-Fuosich. So I saw and spoke with David Mackay, our acquaintance. When we came to the journey's end, some 5 miles further, in my unoccupied evening I walked back again to the Bothie. But on a final crossing, still later in date was added, "Come as soon as you can, be sure and do not miss me." Who would have guessed I should find my haven and end of my travel? Here, by accident too, in the Bothie we laughed about so. Who would have guessed that here would she whose glance at Roanoke turned me that mysterious way, yes, angels conspiring, slowly drew me, conducted me, home, to herself, the needle which in the shaken compass flew hither and hither, at last, long quivering, poises to north. I think so. But I am cautious, more, far more than I was in the old silly days when I left you, though I much fear that my eyes may betray me. Still I am heedful. Anyway try, and have learnt some self-control of manner. As I conceive, with staying and contemplating at Bullock. Other things I hope, but clearly to be more attentive. Not at the Bothie now, at the change house and the Clachan. Why I delay my letter is more than I can tell you. There was another scrap, without or date or comment, dotted over the various observations as follows. Only think, I had danced with her twice, and did not remember. I was as one that sleeps on the railway, one who dreaming hears through his dream the name of his home shouted out, hears and hears not, faint and louder again, and less loud, dying in distance, dimly conscious, with something of inward debate and choice, and sense of claim and reality present, relapses, nevertheless, and continues the dream and fancy well forward. Swiftly, remorseless, the car presses on, he knows not whither. Handsome who handsome is, who handsome does is more so. Pretty is all very pretty, It's prettier far to be useful. No, fair Lady Maria, I say not that, but I will say, stately is service accepted, but lovelier service rendered. Interchange of service, the law and condition of beauty. Anyway, beauty only to be the thing one is meant for. I am sure, for the sphere of mere ornament am not intended. No, nor she, I think, thy sister at Toper-na-Fuosich. No, she transcends it as far as I perhaps fall below it. This was the letter of Philip, and this had brought the tutor. This is why tutor and pupil were walking with David in Ellipse, when for the night they parted, and these once more together, went lockside along the change-house near the Clachan. Thus to his pupil anon commenced the grave man Adam. Yes, she is beautiful, Philip, beautiful even as morning. Yes, it is which I said, the good, and not the attractive. Happy that finds, and finding does not leave it. And by his side in silence walked Philip, and presently answered, Happy is he that finds, if he lose not, but happy and more too. Blessed be he whose showing the seeker is changed to the finder. 10 more days did Adam with Philip abide at the change-house. 10 more nights they met. They walked with father and daughter. 10 more nights, and night by night more distant away were Philip and she, every night less heedful, by habit, the father. Happy 10 days, most happy, and otherwise than thought of. Fortunate visit of Adam, companion and friend to David. Happy 10 days, be ye fruitful of happiness. Pass o'er them slowly. Slowly like crews of the prophet be multiplied even to ages. Pass slowly o'er them, ye days of October, ye soft misty mornings. Long dusky eves, pass slowly, thou great term time of Oxford, awful with lectures and books, and little goes and great goes, till but the sweet bud be perfect recede and retire for the lovers. Yea, for the sweet love of lovers, postpone thyself even to doomsday. Pass o'er them slowly, ye hours. Be with them, ye loves and graces. Indirect and evasive no longer, a cowardly bather, clinging to the bow and rock, sidling along by the edges. In your faith, ye muses and graces, who love the plain present, scorning historic abridgment and artifice, anti-poetic. In your faith, ye muses and loves, ye loves and graces, I will confront the great peril, and speak with the mouth of the lovers. As they spoke by the alders, at evening, the runnel below them, Elpsby, a diligent knitter, and Philip her fingers watching.
End of chapter 6. Chapter 7 of the Bothie of Toper-na-Fuosich by Arthur Clough. This LibriVox recording is part of the public domain. For she confessed, as they sat in the dusk, and he saw not her blushes. Else be confessed at the sports long ago with her father she saw him, when at the door the old man had told him the name of the Bothie. There after that, at the dance, yet again at the dance in Roanoke. And she was silent, confused. Confused much rather Philip, buried his face in his hands, his face that with blood was bursting, silent, confused. Yet by pity she conquered her fear and continued. Katy is good and not silly. Be comforted, sir, about her. Katy is good and not silly, tender, but not like many carrying off, and at once for fear of being seen, in the bosom locking up as a cupboard the pleasure that any man gives them. Keeping it out of sight is a prize they need be ashamed of. That is the way I think, sir, in England more than Scotland.
No, she lives and takes pleasure in all, as in beautiful weather. Sorry to lose it, but just as we would be to lose fine weather. And she is strong to return to herself and feel undeserted, for she always keeps burning a cheerful fire inside her. Oh, she is strong and not silly. She thinks no more about you.
She has had kerchiefs before from gentle, I know, as from simple.
Yes, she is good and not silly. Yet were you wrong, Mr. Philip? Wrong for yourself, perhaps, more than for her. But Philip replied not, raised not his eyes from his hands on his knees. And Elspie continued, That was what you gave me much pain when I met you at the dance in Roanoke.
Dancing myself, too, with you.
Well, Katy danced with Donald. That was what gave me such pain. I thought it all delusion. All a mere chance, an accident, not proper choosing. There were at least 5 or 6. Not there, no, that I don't say, but in the country about. You might just as well have been courting. That was what gave me much pain, and you won't remember that, though. 3 days after, I met you, beside my uncle's walking, and I was wondering much, and hoped you wouldn't notice. So as I passed, I couldn't help looking. You didn't know me. But I was glad, when I heard the next day you were gone to the teacher, and uplifting his face at last, with eyes dilated, large as great stairs in mist, and dim, with dabbled lashes, Philip with new tears starting. You think I do not remember? Said, suppose that I did not observe? Ah me, shall I tell you? Elspie, it was your look that sent me away from Roanoke. It was your glance that, descending, an instant revelation, showed me where I was, and whitherward going, recalled me, sent me not to my books, but to wrestling of thoughts in the mountains. Yes, I have carried your glance with me, undimmed, unaltered, as a lost boat the compass some passing ship lent her. Many a weary mile on road and hill and moorland, it has been with me in shielding and Bothie of wandering drovers. It has been with me, more precious, in chariot and palace of Paras. Do you suppose I do not remember? I had not observed it? Oh, did the sailor bewildered observe when they told him his bearings? Oh, did he cast overboard when they parted the compass they gave him? And he continued more firmly, although with stronger emotion. Elspie, why should I speak it? You cannot believe it, and should not. Why should I say that I love, which I all but said to another? Yet should I dare? Should I say, O Elspie, you only I love, you, first and sole in my life that has been and surely that shall be? Could you believe it, O Elspie, believe it and spurn not? Is it possible? Possible, Elspie? Well, she answered, quietly, after her fashion, still knitting. Well, I think of it. Yes. I don't know, Mr. Philip, but only it feels to me strangely like to the high new bridge when they used to build it below there, over the burn and glen on the road. You won't understand me, but I keep saying in my mind, this long time, slowly with trouble, I've been building myself up and toilfully raising, just like as if the bridge were to do it itself without masons, painfully getting myself upraised, one stone and another, all one side, I mean. And now I see on the other, just such another fabric uprising, better and stronger, close to me, coming to join me. And then I sometimes fancy, sometimes I find myself dreaming at nights about arches and bridges. Sometimes I dream of a great invisible hand coming down and dropping the keystone in the middle. There in my dreaming, there I feel the great keystone coming in and through it, Feel the other part, all the other stones of the archway, joined into mine with a queer, happy sense of completeness tingling, all the way up from the other side basement stones in the water. Though the very grains of mine, just like when the steel that you showed us, moved to the magnet, it seemed a feeling got hold of both of them. But this is confusion and nonsense. I am mixing all things I can think of, and you won't understand me, Mr. Philip. But while she was speaking, so it happened, a moment she paused from her work, and pondering, laid her hand in her lap. Philip took it. She did not resist. So he retained her fingers, the knitting being stopped. But emotion came all over her, and more and more, from his hand, from her heart. Most from the sweet idea and image her brain was renewing. So he retained her hand, and, his tears down dropping on it, trembled a long time, kissed it at last, and she ended. And as she ended, up rose he, saying, "What have I heard, oh, what have I done, that such words should be said to me? Oh, I see it, see the great keystone coming down from the heaven of heavens." And he fell at her feet, and buried his face in her apron. But under the moon and stars they went to the cottage. Elspeth sighed and said,
"Be patient, dear Mr. Philip.
Do not do anything hasty. It is all so soon, so sudden. Do not say anything yet to anyone." "Elspeth," he answered, "does not my friend go on Friday? I then shall see nothing of you. Do not I go myself on Monday?" "But oh," he said, "Elspeth, do as I bid, my child. Do not go on calling me Mr. Might I not just as well be calling you Miss Elspeth? Call me, this heavenly night, for once, for the first time, Philip." "Philip," she said and laughed, and she said she could not say it. "Philip," she said. He turned and kissed the sweet lips as they said it. But on the morrow Elspeth kept out of the way of Philip, and at the evening seat, when he took her hand by the alders, drew it back, saying almost peevishly, "No, Mr. Philip, I was quite right last night. It was all too soon, too sudden. What I told you before was foolish, perhaps was hasty. When I think it over, I am shocked and terrified at it. Not that at all I unsay it, that is, I know I said it, and when I said it I felt it. But oh, we must wait, Mr. Philip. We mustn't pull ourselves at the great keystone of the center. Someone else up above must hold it, fit it, and fix it. If we try to do it, we shall only damage the archway, damage all our work that we wrought, our painful upbuilding. When you remember, you took my hand last evening, talking, I was all over a tremble. As you pressed the fingers, and afterward kissed it, I could not speak. And then, too, as we went home, you kissed me for saying your name. It was dreadful. I have been kissed before," she added, blushing slightly. "I have been kissed more than once by Donald, my cousin, and others. It was the way of the lads, and I make up my mind not to mind it. But Mr. Philip last night, and from you, is different. Quite, sir. When I think it all over, I am shocked and terrified at it. Yes, it is dreadful to me." She paused but continued, smiling almost fiercely, continued, looking upward. "You are too strong, you see, Mr. Philip. You are like the sea there, which will come through the straits and all between the mountains, forcing its great strong tide into every nook and inlet, getting far in, up this quiet stream of sweet inland water, sucking it up, stopping it, turning it, driving it backward, quite preventing its own quiet running. And then, soon after, back it goes off, leaving weeds on the shore, wrack and uncleanliness. And the poor burn in the glen tries again its peaceful running. But it is brackish and tainted, and all its banks disordered. That is what I dreamed last night. I was the Bernie, trying to get along through the tyrannous brine, and could not. I was confined and squeezed in the coils of the great salt tide that would mix in itself with me and change me. I felt myself changing, and I struggled and screamed. I believe, in my dream. It was dreadful. You are too strong, Mr. Philip. I am but a poor slender Bernie, used in the glens and the rocks and the rowan and birch of the woodies, quite unused to the great salt sea, quite afraid and unwilling. Ere she had spoken 2 words, and Philip released her fingers. As she went on, he recoiled, fell back, and shook and shivered. There he stood, looking pale and ghastly, and when she had ended, answering in a hollow voice, "It is true, oh, quite true, Elpsby. Oh, you are always right. Oh, what I have been doing! I will depart tomorrow. But oh, forget me not wholly, Elpsby, nor hate me. No, do not hate me, my Elpsby." But a revulsion passed the brain and bosom of Elpsby. As she got up from her seat on the rock, putting by her knitting, went to him where he stood and answered, "No, Mr. Philip. No, you are good, Mr. Philip, and gentle. I am the foolish. No, Mr. Philip, forgive me." She stepped right to him, and boldly took up his hand, and placed it in hers. He, daring no movement, took up the cold, hanging hand, forcing the heavy elbow. "I am afraid," she said, "but I will," and kissed the fingers. And he fell on his knees and kissed her own past counting. But a revulsion wrought in the brain and bosom of Elpsby, and the passion she just had compared to the vehement ocean, urging the spring tide its masterful way through the mountains, forcing and flooding the silvery stream as it runs from the inland. That great water withdrawn, receding here and passive, felt she in myriad springs, her sources far in the mountains, stirring, collecting, rising, upheaving, forth outflowing, talking and joining, right welcome, that delicate rill in the valley, filling it, making it strong, and still descending, seeking, with a blind forefeeling descending, evermore seeking, with a delicious forefeeling the great still sea before it, there deep into it, far to carry, and lose its bosom, waters that still from their sources exhaustless are fain to be added. As he was kissing her fingers, and knelt on the ground before her, yielding backward, she sank to her seat, and of what she was doing, ignorant, bewildered, in sweet, multitudinous, vague emotion, stooping, knowing not what, put her lips to the curl on his forehead. And Philip, raising himself gently, for the first time round her, passing his arms close, and folding her close to his bosom. As they went home by the moon, "Forgive me, Philip," she whispered. "I have so many things to think of, all of a sudden. I, who had never once thought a thing, in my ignorant highlands."
End of chapter 7. Chapter 8 of the Bothie of Toper-na-Fuosich by Arthur Clough. This LibriVox recording is part of the public domain. But a revulsion again came over the spirit of Elpsby when she thought of his wealth, his birth, and education. Wealth indeed, but small, though to her a difference truly. Father nor mother had Philip, £1,000 his portion. Somewhat impaired in the world where nothing is had for nothing. Fortune indeed, but small, and prospects plain and simple. But the many things that he knew, and the ease of the practised intellect's motion, and all those indefinable graces, were they not hers too, Philip, to speech and manner and movement, lent by the knowledge of self and wisely instructed feeling? When she thought of all these, and these contemplated daily appreciating more, and more exactly appraising, with these thoughts, and the terror withal of everything she could not do, estimate, of a step, such a step, in dark to be taken, terror nameless and ill understood of deserting her station,
Daily heavier upon her pressed the sorrow. Daily distincter within her arose the conviction. He was too high, too perfect, and she so unfit, so unworthy. Ah me, Philip, that ever a word such as that should be written. It would not do for him, nor her. She also was something. Not much indeed indifferent, yet not to be lightly extinguished. Should he, have a wife beneath him, herself being inferior, where only equality can be? It would do neither for him nor her. Alas for Philip! Many were tears and great perplexity. Nor had he availed then all his prayer and all his device. But much was spoken now between Adam and Elspeth, companions they were hourly. Much by Elspeth to Adam, inquiring, anxiously seeking from his experience, seeking impartial, accurate statement, what it was to do this or do that, go hither or thither. How in the afterlife would seem what now seeming certain, might so soon be reversed. In her quest and obscure exploring still from that quiet orb soliciting light to her footsteps, much by Elspeth to Adam, inquiring, eagerly seeking, much by Adam to Elspeth, informing, reassuring, much that was sweet to Elspeth, by Adam, heedfully speaking, quietly, indirectly, in general terms of Philip, gravely, but indirectly, not as incognizant wholly, but as suspending until she could seek it, direct imitation. Much that was sweet in her heart of what he was and would be. Much that was strength to her mind, confirming beliefs and insights. Pure and unfaltering, but young and mute and timid for action. Much of relations of rich and poor, and true education. It was Saturday Eve, in the gorgeous bright October. Then when brackens are changed, and heather blooms are faded, and amid russet of heather and fern green trees are bonny. Alders and greens and oaks, the rowan scarlet and yellow. One great glory of gold pieces appears aspen, and the jewels of the gold that were hung in the hair of the birch tree, pendulous here and there. Her coronet, necklace, and earrings cover her now, o'er and o'er. She is weary and scatters them from her. There, upon Saturday Eve, in a gorgeous bright October, under the alders knitting, gave Elspeth her troth to Philip. For they talked anon, she said, "It is well, Mr. Philip." "Yes, very well. I have spoken, and learned a deal with the teacher. At the last I told him all. I could not help it. It came easier with him than could have been with my father. And he calmly approved, as one that had fully considered. Yes, it is well, I have hoped, though quite too great and sudden. I am so fearful. I think it ought not to be for years yet. I am afraid, but believe in you, and trust to the teacher. You have done all things gravely and temperate, not as in passion. The teacher is prudent, and surely can tell what is likely. What my father will say, I know not. We will obey him. But for myself, I could dare to believe is all well, and venture. O Mr. Philip, may it never hereafter seem to be different. And she hid her face.
Oh, where but in Philip's bosom?
After some silence, some tears too perchance, Philip laughed and said to her, "So, my own Elspeth, at last you are clear that I'm bad enough for you? Ah, but your father won't make one half question about it. You have. He'll think me, I know, nor better nor worse than Donald. Neither better nor worse for my gentlemanship and bookwork. Worse, I fear, as he knows me an idle and vagabond fellow, though he allows. But he'll think it was all for your sake, Elspeth. Though he allows I did some good at the end of the shearing. But I had thought in Scotland you didn't care for this folly. How I wish," he said, "you had lived all your days in the Highlands. This is what comes of the year you spent in our foolish England."
You do not all of you feel these fancies.
No, she answered, and her spirit, the freedom and ancient joy, was reviving. No, she said, and uplifted herself and looked for her knitting. No, nor do I, dear Philip. I don't myself feel always, as I have felt, more sorrow for me these 4 days lately, like the Peruvian Indians I read about last winter, out in America there, in somebody's life of Pizarro, who were as good, perhaps, as the Spaniards, only weaker, and that the one big tree might spread its roots and branches, all the lesser about it must even be felled and perish. No, I feel much more as if I, as well as you were, somewhere, a leaf on one great tree, that up from old time growing contains itself the whole of virtue and life of bygone days, drawing now to itself all kindreds and nations, and must have for itself the whole world for its roots and branches. No, I belong to the tree. I shall not decay in shadow. Yes, I feel the life juices of all the world and the ages coming to me as to you, more slowly, no doubt, and poorer. You are more near, but then you will help to convey them to me. No, don't smile, Philip, now, so scornfully. Well, you look so, scornful and strong, I feel as if I were standing and trembling, fancying the burn in the dark a wide and rushing river. And I feel coming into me, from you, or perhaps from elsewhere, strong contemptuous resolve. I forget, and I bound as across it. But after all, you know, it may be a dangerous river. Oh, if you were so, Elspie, he said, I can carry you over. Nay, she replied, would you tire of having me for a burthen? Oh, sweet burthen, he said, and you are not light as a feather. But it is deep, very likely, she said, over head and ears too. Oh, let us try, he answered. The waters themselves will support us. Yeah, very ripples and waves will form to a boat underneath us. There is a boat, he said, and a name is written upon it. Love, he said, and kissed her. But I will read your books, though, said she. You'll leave me some, Philip.
Not I,
He replied. A volume. This is the way with you all, I perceive, high and low together. Women must read, as if they didn't know all beforehand. Weary of plying the pump, we turn to the running water, and the running spring will needs to have a pump built on it. Weary and sick of our books, we come to repose in your eyesight, as to the woodland and water, the freshness and beauty of nature. Lo, you will talk, forsooth, of all things we are sick to death of. What, she said, and if I have let you become my sweetheart, I am to read no books, but you may go your ways then, and I will read, she said, with my father at home as I used to. If you must have it, he said, I will read them to you. Well, she said, but no, I will read them myself when I choose it. What, you suppose we never read anything here in our Highlands? Bella and I, with father, in all winter evenings. But we must go, Mr. Philip. I shall not go at all, said he, if you call me Mr. Thank heaven, that's well over. No, but it's not, she said. It's not over, nor will it be. Was it not then, she asked, the name I called you first by? No, Mr. Philip, no. You have kissed me enough for 2 nights. No, come, Philip. Come, or I'll go myself without you. You never call me Philip, he answered, until I kiss you. As they went home by the moon, that waning, now rose later, stepping through mossy stones by the runnel under the alders. Loitering unconsciously, Philip, she said, I will not be a lady. We will do work together. You do not wish me a lady. It is a weakness, perhaps, and foolishness. Still it is so. I could not bear to be served and waited upon by footmen. No, not even by a woman. And God forbid, he answered, God forbid you should ever aught but yourself, my Elspie. As for service, I love it not. Ay, your weakness is mine too. I'm sure Adam told you as much about me. I'm sure, she said, he called you a wild and flighty. That is true, he said, till my wings were clipped by Elspie. But my Elspie, he said, you would like to see, I fancy, something of the world, of men and women. You will not refuse me. You will one day come with me and see my uncle and cousins, sister and brother's wife. You should go, if you liked it, just as you are, just what you are, at any rate, my Elspie. Yes, we will go, and give the old solemn, gently stage play. One look, to leave it with the more satisfaction. That it may be, Philip, she said. You are good to think of it. But we are letting our fancies run on indeed. After all, it may come, you know, Mr. Philip, to nothing whatever. There is so much that needs to be done, so much that may happen. All that needs to be done, he said, shall be done, and quickly. And on the morrow he took good heart and spoke with David. Not unwarned the father, nor had been unperceiving, fearful much, but in all from the first reassuring by Adam, in the first few days after Philip came to the Bothie. They had become hearty friends, full of trust the one in the other. And in these last 3 he had talked with him much, and tried him. And he remembered how at the first he had liked the lad, and then too the old man's eye was much more inner than outer, and the natural tune of his heart, without misgiving, went to the noble words of the grand song of the lowlands. Rank is the Guinness stamp, but the man's a man for a' that. Still he was doubtful, would hear nothing of it now, but insisted Philip should go to his books if he chose. He might write, if after chose to return might come, he truly believed him honest. But a year must elapse, and many things might happen. Yet at the end he burst into tears, called Elspie, and blessed them. Elspie, my bairn, he said, I thought not, when at the doorway, standing with you and telling the young man to come and see us. I did not think you would one day be asking me here to surrender what is to me more than my wealth in my Bothie of Toper-na-Fuosich.
End of chapter 8. Chapter 9 of the Bothie of Toper-na-Fuosich by Arthur Clough. This LibriVox recording is part of the public domain. So on the morrow's morrow, with term time dread returning, Philip returned to his books, and read and remained at Oxford. All the Christmas and Easter remained and read at Oxford. Great was wonder in the college when postmen showed to the butlers letters addressed to David Mackay at Toper-na-Fuosich. Letter on letter, at least one a week, one every Sunday. Great at the Highland post was wonder too and conjecture, when the postman showed letters to wife, and wife to the lasses, and the lasses declared they couldn't be really to David. Yes, they could see inside a paper with an E upon it. Great was surmise in college, at breakfast, wine, and supper. Keen the conjecture and joke, but Adam kept the secret. Adam the secret kept, and Philip read like fury. This is a letter written by Philip at Christmas to Adam. What I said at Bullock has truth in it, only distorted. Plants are some for fruit, and some for flowering only. Let there be deer in parks, as well as kine in the paddocks. Grecian buildings upon the earth, as well as Gothic. There may be men, perhaps, whose vocation is to be idle, sumptuous even, luxurious, if it must be. Only let each man seek to be that for which nature meant him, independent, surely of pleasure, if not regardless. Independent also of station, if not regardless. Irrespective alike of station, as of enjoyment.
due to his duty in that state of life to which God, not man, shall call him. If you were to plough, Lord Marquis, out with you, and do it. If you are meant to be idle, O beggar, behold, will feed thee. Take my purse. You have far better right to it, friend, than Marquis. If you were born for groom, and you seem, by your dress, to believe so, do it like a man, Sir George,
For pay,
in a livery stable. Yes,
you may so release.
that slip of a boy at the corner, fingering books at the window, misdoubting the 8th commandment. What a mere dean, with those wits, that debtor and creditor had peace. Go to my detective, D.D. Take the place of Burns and the gauger. Ah, fair Lady Maria, God meant you to live and be lovely. Be so then, and I bless you. But ye spurious ware, who might be plain women, and can be no possibility better.
Ye unhappy statuettes,
Ye miserable trinkets, poor alabaster chimney-piece ornaments under glass cases. Come, in God's name, come down. The very French clock by you puts you to shame by ticking. The fire irons deride you. Break your glasses then, ye can. Come down. You are not really plaster. Come, in God's name, come down. Do anything, be but something. You, young girl, who have had such advantages learnt so quickly. Can ye not teach? Oh, yes? And she likes Sunday school extremely. Only it's soon in the morning. Away! If to teach be your calling, it is no play, but a business. Off! Go teach and be paid for it.
surely that fussy old dowager.
Yonder was meant for the counter. Oh, she is notable very, and keeps her servants in order past admiration. Indeed, and keeps to employ her talents how many, pray? To what use? Away, the hotel is her vocation. Lady Sophia is so good to the sick, so firm, so gentle. Is there a nobler sphere than of hospital nurse and matron? Hast thou for cooking a turn, Lady Clarissa, and with them, and with your fingers, their beauty it spoils, but your own it enhances. For it is beautiful only to do the thing we are meant for. But they will marry, have husbands and children, and guests and households. Are there so many trades for man, for women only one? First to look out for a husband, and then preside at his table? Learning to dance, then dancing, then breeding and entertaining. Breeding and rearing of children at any rate the poor do. Easier, say the doctors, and better, with all their slaving. How many, too disappointed, not being this, can be nothing. How many more spoil it for wives, by means to become
So,
spoil it for wives and mothers, and everything else moreover. This was the answer that came from the tutor, the grave man Adam. Have you ever, Philip, my boy, looked at it this way? When the armies are set in array, and the battle beginning,
is it well?
let the soldier whose post is far to the leftward say, I will go to the right. It is there I shall do best service. There is a great field marshal, my friend, who arrays our battalions. Let us to this providence trust and abide, and work our stations. This was the final retort from the eager, impetuous Philip. I am sorry to say, your providence puzzled me sadly. Children of circumstance, are we to be? You answer, oh, no wise. Where does circumstance end, and providence where begins it? An revolving sphere, which is upper, which is under. What are we to resist, and what are we to be friends with?
If there is battle, 'tis battle by night.
I stand in the darkness. Here in the melee of man, unknown, Doran on both sides. Signal and password known. Which is friend, and which is foeman? Is it friend? I doubt, though we speak with the voice of a brother. Still you are right, I suppose. You always are and will be. Though I mistrust the field marshal, I bow to the duty of order. Let us all get on as we can, and do what we're meant for. Or, as it is said in your favorite weary old ethics, our Aragon. Yet is my feeling rather to ask, where is the battle? Yes, I could find in my heart to cry, in spite of my Elspie. Oh, that the armies indeed were arrayed! O joy of the onset! Sound, thou trumpet of God, come forth, great cause to array us. Kingly litter appear, thy soldiers sorrowing seek thee. Would that the armies indeed were arrayed! O where there is battle? Neither battle I see, nor reign, nor king in Israel, only infinite jumble and mess and dislocation, backed by a solemn appeal, for God's sake do not stir there. You are right, I suppose, if you don't attack my conclusion. Let us go on as we can, and hunt and do the Aragon. That is likely, to be sitting still, eating and drinking. Yes, you are right, I dare say. You always were and will be. And in default of fight, I will put up with peace and Elspie. There are fragments again without date, addressed to Adam. As at return of tide, the total weight of ocean, drawn by moon and sun from Labrador and Greenland, sets in the open space betwixt Mull and Scarfa, heaving, swelling, spreading the might of the mighty Atlantic. There into cranian slit of the rocky, cavernous bottom, settles down, with dimples huge the smooth sea surface eddies, coils and whirls, by dangerous Culvereckan. So in my soul of souls, though its cells and secret recesses comes back, swelling and spreading, the old democratic fervor. But as the light of the day enters some populous city, shaming away ere it come, by chilly daybreak
Signal. High and low, the misusers of night,
shaming out the gas lamps. All the great empty streets are flooded with broadening clearness, which, withal, by inscrutable stimulus access, permeates far and pierces to various cellars lying in narrow, high back lane, and court and alley of alleys. He that goes forth to his walk, while speeding to the suburb, sees sights only peaceful and pure, as laborers settling, slowly to work, and their limbs the lingering sweetness of slumber. Humble market carts coming in, bringing in, not only flour, fruit, farm store, but sounds and sights of the country. Dwelling yet the sense of dreamy drivers, soon after, half-awake servant maids unfastening drowsy shutters. Up at the windows or down, letting in the air by the doorway. Schoolboys and schoolgirls soon, with slate, portfolio, and satchel, hampered as they haste, those running, these others maidenly tripping. Early clerk anon, turning out to stroll, or it may be, meet his sweetheart, waiting behind the garden gate there. Merchant, on his grass plat haply, bareheaded, and now, by this time, little child bringing breakfast to father, that sits by the timber. There by the scaffolding see, she waits for the can beside him. Meantime, above pure air, untarnished of new-lit fires, so that the whole great wicked artificial civilized fabric, all its unfinished houses,
lots
for sale, and railway outworks, seems reassumed to primeval nature and beauty. Such in me, and to me, and on me the love of Elspie. Philip returned to his books, but returned to his Highlands after. Got first, said, a winsome bride,
'tis certain.
There while courtship was ending, nor yet the wedding appointed. Under her father he learnt to handle the hoe and the hatchet. Thither, that summer succeeding, came Adam and Arthur to see him down by the locks from the distant Glenmorrison. Adam the tutor, Arthur, and Hope, and the piper anon, who was there for a visit. He had been into the schools, plucked almost,
All but a gone coon.
so he declared, never once had brushed up his hairy aldrich into the mighty have been, upsoaring sublime and ideal. gave to historical questions a free, poetical treatment, leaving vocabular ghosts undisturbed in their lexicon limbo, took Aristophanes up a shot,
And the whole 3 last weeks
went into life and sunshine, rejoicing to Newnham and Godstow. What were the chains of degree to those of life in the sunshine? There did the four find Philip, the poet, the speaker, the chartist, delving at Highland soil and railing at Highland landlords. Railing, but more, as it seemed, for the fun of the piper's fury. There saw they David and Elsie Mackay, and the piper was almost deeply in love with Bella, sister of Elspie. But the good Adam was heedful. They did not go too often. There in the bright October, the gorgeous bright October, when the brackens are changed, and heather blooms are faded, and amid the russet of heather and fern green trees are bonny. There, when shearing had ended, and barley stooks were garnered, David gave Philip to his wife, his daughter, his darling Elspie. Elspie was quiet, the brave, was wedded to Philip the poet. So won Philip his bride. They are married and gone. But O thou mighty one, muse of great Epos, the idle, playful, tender, be it recounted in song, ere we part, and thou fly to thy Pindus. Pindus is it, O muse, or Adana, or even Ben Nevis? Be it recounted in song, O muse, of the Epos and idle, who gave what at the wedding, the gifts and fair gratulations. Adam, the grave, careful Adam, a medicine chest and toolbox. Hope a saddle, and Arthur a plough, and Rifle the piper. Airlie a necklace for Elspie, and Hobbs a family Bible. Airlie a necklace, and Hobbs a Bible and iron bedstead. What was the letter, O muse, sent withal the corpulent hero? This is the letter of Hobbs, the kilted and corpulent hero. So the last speech and confession is made, O my eloquent speaker. So the good time is coming. Or comes, is it? O my chartist. So the cathedral is finished at last, O my pukin of woman. Finished. And now, is it true, to be taken out whole to New Zealand? Well, go forth to thy field, to thy barley, with Ruth, O Boaz, Ruth, who for thee hath deserted her people, her gods, her mountains, quitted her Moab Lochar for thee, thy Naomi Boaz. Go as Epharth of old, and the gates of Bethlehem, said they. Go, be the wife in thy house, both Rachel and Leah unto thee. Be thy wedding of silver, albeit of iron, thy bedstead. Yea, to the full golden 50 be lengthened, while fair memoranda. Dully fill up the leaves, dully left in the family Bible. Live, be happy, and look to keep the whole skin on thy sirloin. Live, and when Hobbs is forgotten, mayest thou, an unroasted grandsire, see thy children's children, and democracy upon New Zealand. This is the letter of Hobbs, and this is the postscript after. Wit in the letter will prate, but wisdom speaks in postscript. Listen to wisdom, which things you perhaps didn't know, my dear fellow. I have reflected, which things are an allegory, Philip. For this Rachel Leah is marriage, which I have seen it. Lo, and have known it, and always, and must be, bigamy only, even in noblest kind, a duality, compound and complex. One part heavenly ideal, the other vulgar and earthly. For this Rachel and Leah is marriage, and Laban their father, circumstance, chance, the world, our uncle, hard taskmaster. Rachel we found as we fled from the daughters of Heath by the desert. Rachel we met at the well. We came, we saw, we kissed her. Rachel we served for long years that seem a few days only. And for the love we have to her, and win her at last of Laban. Is it not Rachel we take in our joy from the hand of her father? Is it not Rachel we lead in the mystical veil from the altar? Rachel we dream of at night? In the morning, behold, it is Leah. Nay, it is custom, said Laban, and Leah indeed is the elder. Happy and wise who consents to redouble his service to Laban, so fulfilling her week, he may add to the elder the younger. Not reputes Leah, but wins him the Rachel unto her. Neither hate thou Leah, my Philip, she also is worthy. So many days shall thy Rachel have joy, and survive her sister. Yea, and her children, which things are an allegory, Philip. Aye, and by Oregon's head, with vengeance too, a long one.
This was a note from the tutor, the grave man nicknamed Adam. I shall see you, of course, my Philip, before your departure. Joy be to you, my boy, with you and your beautiful Elspie. Happy is he that found, and finding was not heedless. Happy is he that found, and happy the friend that was with him. So won Philip his bride. They are married and gone to New Zealand. 500 pounds in pocket, with books and 2 or 3 pictures, toolbox, plough, and the rest they rounded the spear to New Zealand. There he hewed and dug, subdued the earth and his spirit. There he built a home, and Elspie bare him his children, David and Bella. Perhaps ere this too, an Elspie or Adam. There hath he farmstead and land, and fields of corn and flax fields. And antipodes too have a Bothie of Toper-na-Fuosich. End of the Bothie of Toper-na-Fuosich by Arthur Clough.